How you doing? This is Mike Mandzik. I wanted to thank Ethan Galvin for inviting me to read. I'm a poet who lives in West Caldwell. I've lived in the Caldwell area since 1981. I grew up in Montclair, went to high school in Newark, went to Montclair State. I'm a Jersey boy. The first poem I'll read is called Chance of Passing. It rains like a truck full of ducks. Before the truck bed lost its gaskets, before the first load of backfill was bucketed in and dumped out, the bedliner scraped and swept clean, a cubic yard of water was found by ducks splashing downward, landing on webbed feet, wet and loud, flapping flockfuls of wetness onto fairings and bumpers. It rains like paint sprayed from too far away, globbing spots of fill blank spaces until surfaces shine with dripping new coats. Smell of wet and wait to dry until after your touch. It rains like dust storms grate on skin. It rains like an egg beater. It rains like motors. It rains like shoveled, crushed stone, strong-armed, lifted and flung artlessly over broad, shirtless shoulders. It rains like whispers through a warm, humid night. It rains like pursed curtains blown off a muggy wood sill. It rains like Niagara, roaring, rolling, over and down. It rains like a job fair flooded with prospects. It rains like promises spoken by drought. Knowing where the dream ends. As waves rolled in, we watched our feet disappear into the sand that night. If we stood our ground, I thought, we could build a pier on that spot from which to sail our dream ship. We'd shore up our ankles, drive them like pilings to withstand the sucking tides and beating surf that inevitably test all who try to stand and stop the sea. Then the tide pulled past us, bleached my thoughts into unspoken words. Being on the beach at 2 a.m. may have had much to do with my simple speculation. It was a standoff, us alone against the dull black waves, with some friends and sleeping fishermen farther up the surf. We could have stood, but didn't. The undertow washed my words away. Vacation ended, so we headed back, left the shore until next time. At home a few nights later, as I watched fog creep down off the mountain, the ghost of rain, the mist, the salt spray, I saw the dream I kept from you down the shore, saw it built on sand. In that while since then, Indian summer has been left. Autumn set its torch to the northern leaves. Winter solstice darkly reached. Our half-sphere spins quiet in cold storage. Seasons counterpoint our simple dream, still quieter than snow. This next is called From a Lockwood Prompt, for my Diane. I was satisfied with a moment's glance until your smile eye-blued me to the bottom stair. A standing deer froze in your lashlights, just a still shot mugged one off. But now I want a marathon spectacular, an epic festival, a parade of pageantry, the voyage of a lifetime, listing carelessly as the maid of the mist slips majestically over the falls. No beginning, middle, end, bottom, or topsails into view, unless we tack the times with chances that each episode sounds another echo, fleetly passing for romance. Should the rays of sun and stars expire, and of moon glow wane or dim, we'll proceed with caution, and our souls adrift, made full with radiant care. Amen. This next is called Highland Thing. It's most, let me start again. Highland Thing. Its front, mostly shaded by hemlock, the cabin we bought sat south of the lake. Not next to it, mind you, but too good a walk to take a swim or a dip as you were prone to want. You'd only go to the beach by car. I'd lug our towels, your chair, an old sheet to lay on, and a cooler iced with beer and soda. The day before we sold the place, the edge of winter went damp. Mildew poured out the door. I bundled our sheets, towels, and suits, stuffed them all into my truck, left the chair out on the lawn. The long way home rolled slow down the unpaved mountain road as gravel dropped off my tires. Back to normal. Bedheaded. It smelled well rested. Plans for the weekend were bright, a gleam. We planned the final clean-out. That's what she said. Further down, fresh smoked beast melted in the maw, but stopped short of all it cracked up to be, far short. That is what she said. So where was this normal, she wanted to say. Words hung clear, on point to their iced end. Tangentially, it does help if you know what you want. Immensely, in fact, and of infinite extent. Our words blurred into sounds heard underwater, spun like spokes and wheels as meaning levels lifted and dropped, helped down and out by those unremarkable forces, gravity and entropy. Branch and shadow. Did you wash that thing like I asked you to, or did you forget? Her question grows another ring beneath my burling bark. So now what's next, I mutter to myself. Last week an 800-pound gorilla passed consensus on my candidacy, that my answers were vague, with not enough examples to qualify as data-driven outcomes, obviously proving myself their undesired B player. Since now I know that move was never meant to be, this will be no loss, because we can learn from it. I am not fit for that position, come I to my own conclusion. I am not out on a limb. Too many times have I tried to stretch myself to fit the bill for places I thought were where I thought I wanted to be, if only because I was not there. I reached out then like I was running to a shadow, but found only empty space devoid of light that was never there to begin with. Her washed item chimes cleaner than a bell rung gently in icy mountain air. This next poem is called Frozen Funds. My father never spent a red cent on anything he could make himself. We did everything from residing our house with cedar shakes to giving the old Ford a tune-up whenever it ran rough or was hard to start. Since he fed and clothed me for all my early years, obviously he had already overpaid for my services before I even knew how to do anything. So on weekends, I was at his beck and call. Winter dropped the curtain early on Saturday afternoons in the driveway between our house and old Miss Gore's next door. My chief job was holding a flashlight so he could see the spark plug or whatever he wanted to tighten down. There were no floodlights outside. The alleyway kept any street light out in the public domain. And after a while, all he said was, "Hold that goddamn light still, will you?" My frozen fingers tried to keep the beam steady, but even the flashlight was a block of ice, and my gloves were soaked from snowball fights and building forts and igloos. My feet were frozen, and I really had to pee. Sometimes the wrench broke free. He might have skinned a gloveless knuckle, bark a vowel of pain, then reseat the tool held tighter now in his fist and work the nut down however long it took. Mom would call us in for supper 5 or 6 times before he'd say, "Okay, now check for tools in there before you turn off your light." And he latched the hood shut as only a child of the Depression knew how to do. He handed me the box and wrench to put away, and I felt his cold fingers, amazed that even the blood in the gash on his knuckle was frozen stiff in its place, too scared to be spent without proper authorization. This next poem is More Shirts Than Money. It's a palimpsest from Gottschall. Sometimes I say I'm going to meet my brother at the fights, even though I have no brother, just because it's such a macho thing to say. I always thought so ever since I saw on TV that 2 brothers said they always met together at the fights. The other day, for example, I jogged alone on a steaming track down at the high school behind a pack of regulars, thinking one of those shaken bakers might turn and ask me to catch up. I had a water bottle and a wristband. The homeroom bell broke on the silent, muggy air. Summer shimmered horizontally over blacktop, broiling nothing. I brought a sleeve with heavy metal CDs down to the ring and took a free towel from the uniformed usher. I like a place where you can hear the sounds of strength at work, like the difference between lime and candle light, and the price of fandom. It's going up. I watched someone who could be my brother walk in through the gate, wipe the sweat from his brow. I thought, even now, the vendors are selling souvenirs from their carts, T-shirts, $20, 2 for $34. All over the city, any one of these brothers could be mine. And my last poem is called Suit Department Karma. 1. As far back as I can remember, nothing ever fit me right. My pant cuffs were rolled up inside like the too big waistband tacked to my size with a few stitches. My shirt sleeves got tucked up and sewed so the cuffs just covered my wrist. It looked like I had stripes between my elbows and cuffs. And of course the cuffs were folded back and buttoned. One of my aunts puffed me up when she told me, when well-to-do men wore their shirts like this, they were called French cuffs. Then one day I learned this wasn't so. It can still take a while for truth to find me. Moving along slow and steady, this is usually how it gets to me. After which, it drops on me like a bushmaster from a tree. 2. We all wear the scarf of regret. Ants flattened underfoot while bringing food to the colony. The last cigarette crushed in a tray. Lives stubbed out of place, yet not out of mind. Ashy residue floats from a smoking barrel. Handmade muffler, collars chilled remembrance. This silent rap may not be entirely appropriate for swimwear. Even more unthinkable is to be caught without it, an unmentionable accessory to naked truth. 3. For the departed Ronald Eric Schreiber. The Milky Way is permanent press, meant to be lived in. It's all in the way that you treat people. If it's done wrong, the look is crumpled. When it's done right, you look like you belong. Of course, some wrinkles are free, comfortably on purpose. Thank you. Good night.